Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
All right, so today I'm here with McKenzie Rienhardt, and she is with Rienhardt Ranch and YMI Cattle Company. Thanks for joining us today, McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. How's the weather where you're at today?
It's about 85 and sunny for upstate New York. We will take that all day.
Well, upstate New York, so that's what some folks would consider an interesting place to have cattle, let alone longhorns. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what made you decide to get into longhorns?
Yeah, so to just kind of give you a little bit of background, because it kind of plays a piece into how we got into longhorns. My family, we actually originally started in the dairy industry. So I would be considered fifth generation dairy, or the fifth generation of our family involved in dairy. And in 2017, we decided to kind of sell out. The industry had been shifting and changing a little bit. And just with life commitments and stuff we had going on as a family, we decided to move away from that. However, last July, my dad turned 50, which is the big monumental 50. And he kind of approached us about the idea of possibly getting cattle again, to which we were all like, yeah, that's really cool. But like in our current life situation, we can't handle like a full-fledged dairy farm again. Like that's just not something we can commit to. So we were all kind of like joking with him and saying like, oh, like you got to find something that's a little less labor intensive, or you need to find something cool, or like, you know what I mean? Not that dairy is not cool, but we were not looking to get back in the dairy industry. And so he went and did a little bit of research, which he's one of those people that once he's got the idea in his head, it's going to happen regardless of what anybody says. But he came back to us and he was like, what do we think about Texas Longhorns? And the same exact response that you just had about Texas Longhorns being in upstate New York was the same exact response that I gave him. I was like, that's really cool and all, but like, I think you're forgetting we live in upstate New York and it snows here. Like, you know what I mean? And he's like, no, like I've been looking into it. He's like, I just wanted to get all of your guys', opinions, thoughts on it before we move forward with it. So we talked about it a little bit and I was like, well, I definitely think it's worth investigating. Well, his investigation basically was the fact that he was headed to Dallas, Texas in 4 days and ended up coming home with them later that week. But in terms of why we got into longhorns, my dad honestly was just really excited to kind of learn a little bit more about the breed and kind of what was going on there. It's vastly different from the dairy industry that we were used to. We were Holsteins, red and white Holsteins, and brown Swiss. So there was definitely a learning curve that had to happen, but he just thought it was going to be a really cool breed to at least investigate and see if it was something we wanted to pursue.
Nice. So when he decided he was going to Dallas, how did he research them? How did he find his first ones? Like, tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, of course. So he's like brilliant, absolutely brilliant, man. But he definitely, when he gets an idea in his head, is like full-fledged, like he's committed to learning anything he can about it type of thing. So he was doing just a lot of like Googling research, that type of stuff. And then obviously like having a dairy background, you know people who know people, that type of thing. So then he got his way into like a little bit of like the forums and like the Facebook pages for longhorns. Those have been awesome resources. But it was the Sand Creek auction site that he actually came across. And he's one of those people that you don't want on an auction site because then something's going to show up at your house a couple weeks later. So he was on the Sand Creek auction site and he saw 4 animals that were actually in Gainesville, Texas. And basically his whole thought process was if he was going to go all the way to Texas or somewhere in, the central of our country, that he wanted to go for more than one. So the fact that there was 4 in the same place, he thought that would be a great place to start in terms of like, hey, it might be a little hobby herd. It might be something we try, maybe we don't like, or maybe we're going to fall in love with it and see what happens. So our longhorns actually came from Joe Don Robinson, and he's out of Gainesville, Texas. So dad found him on the site, bought him, and then him and my brother made the I want to say 6 or 7 hour drive from upstate Syracuse area, New York, all the way to Gainesville, Texas to get them and back. So that was how it got started.
So once you got them back, did you get any like unique reactions? Are they somewhere where maybe folks drive by them and you get questions? How is that?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because in terms of like our location, if you look at the map of New York, the like smack dab central area of New York is Syracuse. And we're about 20 to 25 minutes south of Syracuse. So we're very much like a dairy farming, beef cattle, like just farming industry kind of area as a whole. But it was definitely funny and unique to see the way that people were reacting, because that's not normal. I mean, let's be honest, it's not normal, especially for where we live. So we brought them home with the intent that it was going to be like, hey, here's 4 animals. This is going to be kind of a trial and error situation. We'll see if we like it, if it's something we want to get into. But I think my dad had already just decided at that point that it was. So yeah, it was really fun because I would have like friends and stuff come over and they thought it was the coolest thing, which it absolutely is, but it's just really fun to see people's reactions to any sort of like agriculture industry, let alone something like a Longhorn in upstate New York. So in terms of that, it's been super fun. We've had a lot of like FFA groups. I've had a lot of college, like groups of kids and students like Cornell and some of our local colleges and stuff like come out and visit them now later on after the fact. But definitely the reaction was it wasn't even a why. It was more like, how is this happening? And what made you guys decide to do that? Which really in turn was all on my dad, but.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
What's your favorite part now that you have them?
So it's been really fun because, when we had dairy, it was a full family venture. It wasn't just one person doing it. It wasn't, my dad was always kind of, I want to say the brains behind the operation, but, we were always taking care of the animals. We showed our animals, we did all of that stuff. So it was really fun and unique to do that as a family. And I think in terms of that, one, my dad really missed the cattle. That's just something that, is kind of in his blood. But 2, I think the family aspect of it kind of is something that brings us together, and it's something that we can all work on together. So that's been really fun. But in terms of the actual animals themselves, I'm a cow girl. Like I always have been, you know what I mean? So different cows, different perspective, but they're just so fun. They're docile, they're calm. They all have their unique individual personalities. And it's really honestly a good time. But like I said before, it's also really fun to kind of bring some awareness to agriculture as a whole, but also the industry now in our local area, because there's one other breeder like in our local immediate area. But other than that, there's very, very minimal in upstate, in New York and New England as a whole. So it's really fun to just be able to kind of be that point and just be a place where people can come and learn about, agriculture and cows and specifically the Longhorn industry.
So do those sorts of things play into like your overall marketing plan at all? Like, are you very strategic about trying to get groups out and get them more exposure and then hope that leads to maybe some private treaty sales down the road?
So it kind of happened as an accident, to be honest. It was more of like, you have Longhorns and that's not something that happens here. But then it started to become like, I would have groups of friends coming out, like anybody wants to see a cool cow, you know what I mean? But then it became like an FFA group. We had a group of like vet students from Cornell come out, which Cornell is not too far from us. It's about 45 minutes or so. And we started to have like all these different collective groups. So like a school group, or it was like a mentorship program or something like that. So it was just really cool to be able to take that and use that as an opportunity to teach people about the industry, especially being somebody who obviously wasn't involved in it, but have gotten to learn about it and be in it over the last year or so.
Nice. So what would you say now that you've been in it for a while, have some exposure, what would you say that your goals and dreams are for your breeding program?
So we've only been at it for about 13 months. So our original 4 have very quickly, and I can get into that later if that's something that comes up, has multiplied tremendously over the last 12 months or so. So we're up to about 32, which my dad proclaimed to us that the cutoff was 10. So you can see how that was aging for us and our family. But that's also kind of brought us all over the country. It's allowed us to meet some really awesome people along the way, all that good stuff. In terms of our herd, now that we've really built the foundation. That's what we spent the last 12 months or so doing, was kind of building the foundation. Obviously learning, there's a huge learning curve, especially if it's not something you're involved in or it's new. But it was just really building a strong foundation that we can start to build our ongoing herd off of. In dairy, my dad was always very much into the genetics and breeding. We did all the milk production, all of that stuff, but his heart was really in genetics and breeding, and basically getting animals to the best place that he possibly can. You know what I mean? We really like to breed with excellence, and he's always been about creating animals with the best body composition, whether that's, their actual body, their stature, the way they carry themselves. In terms of Longhorns, obviously the horns, the colors, all of that stuff starting to play a piece. So that's what he's really going to start focusing on now that we've kind of established our herd and gotten our feet wet and kind of started to figure it out. By no means do we know everything. We are constantly learning, and we are so grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that. But he's really, really excited about the opportunity to kind of start breeding more selectively and just really create an awesome, herd and lineage lines of animals. So
I actually just interviewed another breeder whose website went live recently, and his background is also in dairy. He's out in Oregon. And he talked to me a lot about how one of the biggest differences between dairy and Longhorns is the use of like AI and embryo transfer, how big it is in the dairy industry. And even though it kind of seems popular with Longhorns, like it's very far behind. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. We were primarily, when we were doing our breeding and stuff for our dairy, like I said, we had show animals, and my dad was always looking to, bring them to the next level, and whatever, they were lacking or whatever we thought they needed in terms of composing and creating the best animals. So he was still is super, super prevalent in kind of how that all works with AI and all that stuff. It's definitely been interesting to see that, like you said, it is present in Longhorns, but it's not as popular. So it's been an interesting difference for sure, but it's also been fun because, we've got some awesome bulls and animals that we're bringing into our herds. So it's kind of cool to see the differences and the different ways that things play out.
So do you think that you'll utilize AI as heavily, or are you going to try to, like you mentioned, you have some of your own bulls, are you going to kind of balance it out and see which works better for you?
I think it's going to be kind of a trial and error. We have a couple of really great bulls. One's a partnership bull that we really, really like. And we have a couple up and coming guys who are yearlings. They're about a year old. And they look really good. So a lot of it's going to depend on kind of how they grow and develop, and if they're what my dad thinks he wants to use in terms of breeding. I don't think he's opposed to AI. Obviously, he's very well versed in that. A little bit different in Longhorn, but still the same concept. I think it's really just going to be a trial and error, kind of seeing how it goes. We have some calves that should be coming in the fall, like right around September, October, from our one partnership bull. So it'll be really fun to see, how those come out, what they're looking like, that type of thing. And then obviously correct and go from there. So in terms of that, I think it could really be both. It's just, I think we're keeping all options open and just kind of learning as we go.
That's probably good. A good approach.
For sure.
So before, when we were visiting, you mentioned about that there might be an interesting story behind the original 4 that you purchased. Do you want to share that with us?
So this entire season, I'll call it, because it really hasn't been that long, if we're being honest, has been super interesting just because, I mentioned at the beginning, my dad's somebody who basically, once he makes a decision, the decision's kind of made, if that makes sense. Like, not that he's not taking into account our opinions, but he's already on it. You know what I mean? So in terms of that, we had our family meeting. He was like, what do you guys think of Longhorns? We were like, oh, that could be cool. Thinking it's like a conversation piece, something we'll revisit, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. We will come back to it. And then literally 2 days later, him and my brother are like on their way to Gainesville. So obviously you can see how that aged. It wasn't necessarily that one that was that crazy, other than the fact that you're driving. They split the drive up on the way down to Dallas. So they stopped, I don't know, I think in like Tennessee or something before continuing on. But obviously a 28 straight hour drive back when you have cattle on a trailer is not the best of times. But the story that makes me laugh, however, is since that, basically what happened was he went down for 4. One of them had a yearling. And basically when he loaded up the 4, the yearling just hopped on the trailer. And the guy was like, if you want her, like, you can have her. So he was originally only supposed to go for 4, right? He comes home with 5. And I was like, Dad, this is dairy all over again. Like, it just has his name written all over it, right? So I go away last summer for a portion of the summer doing some stuff. And I come back And like, nobody told me that we got more. So like I come home and we have like 8 and I'm like, okay, where'd they come from? And he's like, oh, like we took a trip to Wisconsin, like while you were gone, whatever. And I was like, okay. So a few weeks later, we go to the Eastern Breeders sale in Culpeper, Virginia, right? He calls me and he goes, what do you think about Arkansas? And I was like, Dad, Arkansas, I'm sure, is a fantastic state. That's all he says. He doesn't say anything else. I go, Arkansas, I'm sure, is a lovely state. Like, not really on the top of my radar right now. Kind of have a lot going on. Like, what's up? He goes, well, I need you to go to Arkansas with me. And I was like, for what? Like, for what? Like, it could have been anything, honestly, with this man. He's like, for some Longhorns. And I was like, okay. How are we going to do that? So this was Columbus Day weekend in October. And I had a bunch of work obligations and stuff. So long story short, what ended up happening was I flew into Little Rock, Arkansas. He didn't pick me up because you can't drive a cattle trailer through an airport. I fly into Little Rock, Arkansas. He parks in some basically abandoned warehouse and I have to take a cab to him. The whole time the guy is like, are you sure this is where you're supposed to be? Like, this doesn't seem safe. This isn't it. And I was like, I so appreciate that you care that much about me. Like, we literally get to my dad in this abandoned parking lot. And the guy goes, are you sure you know this man? And I was like, unfortunately, I have to admit that this is my father. So I get in the truck with him. We head out to like Mena, Arkansas. Not sure if you're familiar with that area. Literally nothing. There's like a taco shop and a motel and like, that's it. So we're down in Mena, Arkansas at this awesome ranch and we're going for 4 animals, right? We show up at the ranch. Every single animal that we were bringing home had a calf. My dad wasn't aware. So we went for 4 and we came home with 8 and then had to drive home. It ended up being about 27 hours or so from Mena, Arkansas, all the way back to Syracuse, New York. So it's been an ongoing joke because every time my dad purchases animals or goes to visit somewhere or something like that, he'll say he's going for 1, 2, 3, and it's usually like 4, 5, 6. Like there's always an addition that has never been what he's originally going for. So.
Well, at least it's an adventure. I would imagine that when you look at that, those 5 animals out in the field, you remember that memory with your dad. So that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's been awesome.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now, back to the podcast.
So you mentioned Neil with Sand Creek Auction. Is there anyone else that you kind of want to recognize for helping you all get started?
Yeah, so in terms of that, we went to, outside of kind of the ranches we had visited and people we had purchased cattle from, our first main event was the Eastern Breeders Sale in Culpeper, Virginia, with G&G Longhorns. And that was just an awesome event just to kind of, one, get to meet people. Like, we had met with people that we were buying animals from, but it was kind of a really nice opportunity to kind of step into the community and just get to conversate and meet people. But literally within probably 10 minutes of us being at that then we met the Cope family and they're up in Massachusetts, which was kind of nice because New York to Massachusetts is not that far. But they are just an incredible family who just have poured into us and they have been such, a blessing of a friendship, but also in terms of, mentorship within the Longhorn industry. They've been so awesome. They have a daughter who's actually my age and we've quickly befriended each other. So it was just a really unique opportunity to like meet somebody, but you sometimes when you meet people, you don't realize like how big of an impact they're going to have down the road. And just to see the amount that they've like poured into us and like helped us and just been awesome friends over the last 12 months or so has been so awesome. Secondary to that would be Andy Brooks and his wife, Lindsay. Them along with the Coates are who we had our first partnership animal with. So that was really, really cool. Dan Huntington out in Wisconsin, great guy. And then Johnny and Missy Hicks out in Michigan. My dad actually just spent like a long weekend with them and he's an awesome guy who really just took my dad around. They toured a bunch of ranches. My dad and him are basically the same person and can just talk for hours on end, just very similar personalities and ways of thinking. And they've connived up a lot of fun ideas and just things that they want to see happen in terms of the industry and things that they want to bring to our ranch and kind of all that good stuff. So they're just some awesome people all around that have really poured into us over the last 12 months or so. But I will say, in terms of a difference between dairy and Longhorns, which I'm not shaming the dairy industry, I proudly come and represent the dairy industry. but everybody's just so nice in the Longhorn industry. You know what I mean? It's not cutthroat. It's not dry. It's not competitive. Everybody always just has your best intent and is looking to help you and mentor you. And if you have a question, you can call somebody and ask, and somebody's willing to explain something to you. And people are just so generous and kind. And that's just something that we've definitely noted as a family in terms of the community that we've gotten to step into, is how kind and really caring people are.
We hear that a lot. I mean, that's probably one of the things I think that new breeders pick up on the quickest is how at least there's the willingness to share knowledge. Like people aren't trying to gatekeep, some of their experience, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys are in great hands.
Really special. Yeah.
Well, before we switch gears and talk a little bit about your website, is there anything that you want to, anything else you want to share specifically about your herd or your ranch or anything like that?
Honestly, we're on for the adventure. We're kind of waiting to come and see what happens. Like I said, we've had the opportunity to kind of build up our herd and build that foundation, what was supposed to be a very, very small foundation. But we've had the opportunity to kind of build up our herd and, get to meet some awesome people along the way. So now that foundation has been built, we're really looking to step into the breeding and, just kind of creating animals with posture and just great composition. And my dad's gotten into a little bit of the judging and that type of thing coming from the dairy background. So it's just been really, really fun overall to see, all the differences, but also the similarities between the different industries. But it's been also really awesome to be able to carve a unique space, within the industry itself. The Longhorn community, the Longhorn family is this huge, elaborate, web of people. We're very aware of that, but it's just been really fun that you can take, what you want and you can make it your own in terms of, your family, your desires, what you're looking to do within the breed. And that's just been really, really fun. So we're so grateful for that and the opportunity to be able to do that each and every day.
Are you all planning to head back to the East Coast sale this fall?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you have plans to go to any other fall events?
So, I know we'll definitely be there. I honestly don't know too much because my dad tends to tell me when we're doing things like as they're happening. We definitely want to get down to the TBLA showcase and that type of thing. There is one in October that we've talked about, but also obviously the one over Martin Luther King weekend, all of that stuff. We're really pushing for that. That's something that we would like to do. But other than that, I'm not too sure. I'm sure, knowing my father, we're going to end up somewhere, and it's probably going to be somewhere far away, but I'm all for it. It's been so fun. Like I said, despite the chaos, despite all the craziness that's occurred, over the last 12 months in this transition, whatnot, it has been really fun to kind of just honestly go along for the ride and see what adventure comes. So that's what I'm here for.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your website for a little bit. I know you kind of are the representative for your family, so to put it, that has been involved with us the most on your website. So tell us kind of what made you decide to get started specifically with the hired hand site.
Yeah. So like you were kind of saying, I'm kind of the touch point in terms of anything that comes to, marketing, whether it's our Facebook page, our Instagram page, just kind of generally getting our name out there, the connections like we were talking about in terms of having groups come and visit our ranch. My dad barely knows what a computer is, let alone how to use one. So that's just not something he does. So that's kind of been left to me. But in terms of that, we were just talking, about how we wanted kind of a collective space where we could not only house all of the information about our cattle and, their pedigrees, their information, all of that stuff for people who want to potentially buy, but also just a little bit about us, our social media pages, we have like merch and stuff too. So we were like, hey, we just really want a collective space to be able to do this. And it was actually in talking to a lot of our friends, that they recommend hired hand. So in terms of choosing hired hand to be able to do that, it's really the simplicity and the ease of being able to create what you want with you guys, as well as the fact of, it's professional, it's well kept, it's easy to use. Everything that you need is basically there, but it also puts everything in a collective space, which really makes it super easy when you are trying to direct people to, a website or a touch point. And luckily enough for us, our website kind of encompasses everything for us. It's not only our family story and how we got into it, it's literally all the information somebody would need to know or want to know about our animals. It has I don't think it has our merch link yet. It will, but it also has all our social media and stuff too. And social media has definitely been something that has been huge in terms for us in terms of marketing, because we are in upstate New York. There's not a lot of people up here who are involved in the industry. So, our social media is really how we get our presence out. It's not like, there's not this saturated market of people in the Longhorn industry really in the Northeast at all. So marketability in terms of social media has really been how we've been getting people to know about us, whether that's, people who aren't involved in the industry at all and just like really like cows and want to follow along, or making connections with people in the industry, selling animals, all of that good stuff. So I definitely value social media in terms of that. And then the website was really just a professionally well done area that we could direct people that had all of the things that we needed it to have to encompass the success of that.
So it sounds like you're pretty intentional about what pages or what content you put and how you organized it and stuff, that you're definitely trying to, as you said, reach the people who maybe don't know anything about Longhorns and are excited that you have them in your area, but then also existing breeders that, you should also be networking and, making sales with. Was there anything during that process while you were kind of planning that out that you want to share as advice for maybe other people who are just getting started?
I would definitely say it's kind of twofold. Like you were just saying, you have to consider in anything that you're selling, quote unquote, or representing, you have to consider your market and who that's going to be. One, who it's going to be, but also two, who you're intentionally trying to make it, for. And those could be two totally different things. That might be a couple of different avenues. But like you were kind of saying, just to reiterate, I knew that for our area, it was kind of absurd or unheard of, not in a negative way at all. It's just not normal for our area. So it was almost a culture shock, if that makes sense, that we all of a sudden had this Longhorn establishment, full-fledged ranch happening in Syracuse, New York. So that just drew a lot of traffic in terms of people are like, we need to know what's going on here, right? Like, how do we become a part of this? Like to whatever degree capacity, how do we visit? How do we see them? How do we keep up? So, we have that avenue of people who just, want to know what's going on in the Longhorn world and want to keep up on Facebook and that type of thing. But then we also have, the people that were intentionally creating connections with different ranches, different partnerships, different things. Basically just, like I said, getting the word out about the ranch. So in terms of like our social media presence, it's very much like, it's a balance, I would say. We go from like a nice, cute little picture of everybody taking a nap in the pasture and, we're snoozing on a Sunday to, hey, this is our newest bull. This is his genetic line. This is his pedigree. This is all of our stuff. These are our partnerships, all that stuff. Mind you, when somebody who's not involved in, agriculture, Longhorns, cattle, usually at all, sees like a pedigree or something to that degree, they have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? But in terms of posting on social media with that stuff, I found it's definitely like super easy to come up with like some cute little caption or whatever, but then also disclose all of the information that would be relevant to the breeders, different ranches and people who know what's going on in terms of that. Nothing against those people, but obviously it's kind of two different things that you're trying to balance out. So in terms of marketing and like creating posts or creating content, I think you can adapt to what the people want to see, but you can also still provide the information that's relevant for the connections and things that you're trying to build with the intent of selling, breeding, connecting with people.
For sure. That's a great point. We'll be sure to link to all of your socials in the episode notes. And so people can kind of go, and look at those examples. I think that's a great point.
Cool.
All right. So last question. Sometimes our customers say this one is the hardest because we only let you pick one. So, so aside from your own website, what hired hand website is your favorite?
I would definitely say the Schumacher's Cattle down in Texas. I always look to their website, and I'm probably like one of those people that looks at their website more often than not, just because I love the simplicity of it. One, and I really love, and it's something that I've tried to integrate with our family. When you look at their website, you see that it's a family venture. You see that it's not just, the parents, it's not just the husband, it's not just the wife, it's their whole family with their two boys, everybody included. And I just loved the way that they kind of present, Schumacher Cattle as, a family venture. They're an incredible couple nonetheless, and they're just awesome assets in the industry. But I really love the family perspective that they take. Now I'm choosing just one, like you said. However, I have noticed with a lot of different ranches that we've gotten to visit, two people we've gotten to connect with, but also social media presence. That family is a big deal in the Longhorn industry. It's usually a family venture. Sometimes it's even a multi-generational family venture, which is cool, like I said, because I've come from that background. But it's just really unique to see that it is a family thing, and that family is definitely something that's prioritized in the industry. So
good answer. Well, before we wrap up today, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners about just anything having to do with your cattle or your website?
I don't think so. Honestly, like I said, it's been such a fun adventure, and we're just so grateful that I would say my dad took a leap of faith, but really just decided that this is what we were doing. And it was kind of where we were planting our flag. We were joking in the beginning saying, if we don't like our four, it's very easy to resell whatever, like at that point, if we don't like them, that's fine. I don't even think he gave us the opportunity to do that, because before there was 4, there was 5. And then when there was 5, there was 8. And then we added 8 more. This has gone on for the last 12 months. So it's just a continuous cycle, but it's been a really awesome and unique opportunity to plant our flag here and just be able to get to meet people and create our herd and kind of just see where this thing takes our family overall. We're so grateful for that each and every day.
I love how adventurous you all are. And I look forward to seeing all of the strategy your dad puts into your future breeding. That'll be exciting to follow in the upcoming years.
Yes, I'm really excited to see how he kind of takes his unique skill set from the dairy industry and kind of transfers that over, and what that looks like in the years to come and generations to come. Definitely a family venture, and definitely something we are thankful for. So,
well, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll put links to your website and all your social, as well as the people that you mentioned. We'll put links to their websites in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Have a great rest of your day.